welcome into another edition of the Her Hoop Stats podcast. It is Wednesday, May 28th. As always, I am Jamie Steyer Johnson. Today, I am joined by Tyler DeLuca. And Tyler, man, we've got a whole lot we could be talking about because we had a full slate last night after our brief reprieve on Monday. So, do you feel like you were able to properly consume 5 games in one evening?
Well, my league pass started shorting out a little bit. I don't know if I had too many things open in the multi-view or what, but there was a lot going on. A lot of good things to take away for some teams, some bad things to take away for other teams, but it was a good night of hoops overall. Like by the end of the night, especially, like we got some close endings and everything, some good hoops between good teams. So it was a fun night. I wouldn't be opposed. We have 0 games on Monday, 5 games Tuesday, and then today on Wednesday we have 1 game. Feel like we could figure something out a little bit better with that somewhere. But that's a conversation that's been had and can be had on another day. But overall, a good night of hoops.
I was frankly just shocked that 4 of the games weren't all tipping off at like.
Look, we take the wins we can get. We take the wins we can get. Absolutely.
Like graduating them to
literally
that degree at least.
Yeah.
And no, I think that they were just having some technical difficulties across the board. I know.
Okay, so it wasn't just me.
I know the Dream had some, the Dream game had some. So it was not you. It was
sick.
In fact, I think the technology. So
I guess that's not a good thing. I guess I would rather it just have been me. But alas, selfishly, I'll take that as a good thing.
Yeah. At least for your future viewing experience. You and I were talking a little bit, just sort of playing it out because there's so much we could be hitting on, and a lot we will try to get to. But kind of the headline for today to us was the Lynx and the Storm game last night. I tried to mitigate the homerism, my own bias, and so I haven't really talked a whole lot of Lynx yet this season. And at this point, I think it's time.
It might be time, because goodness gracious.
Back to full strength as far as their roster goes, with Kayla McBride returning and looking like she has not missed a step.
She's totally fine
whatsoever against high level competition. Just starts out on a tear in that game. And I mean, just the cohesion, the group just really looks like they are still extremely connected. A lot of players have taken a step from last year. And then the Storm, had a really rough start to the game, but they come back, they make it really a tight game down the stretch. To me, I think the most fun game I've watched yet this year, just because of the fact that it's the team that I primarily cheer for. And was such a great, just contentious game. But what kind of were your thoughts from last night? Because there was obviously a lot to think about on both sides.
Yeah, I think from this game, it's one of those games where I leave feeling better about both teams. And because again, like the Storm at the beginning, I'm like, I didn't know if this was like kind of a draw. Obviously, we just saw the blowout win that they had against Vegas. Like, was this like kind of coming off a high, and like, is it going to be a dud of a game? Like, it's just kind of one of those things potentially. But to see them come back was incredibly positive in that way. And there's certainly things that like they still have to get better at. And I certainly like just looking at the box score, like the thing that jumps out to me is like over the course of this season, we haven't seen like a ton of Ezzy in the offensive production realm. I would like to see more of that, just putting it frank. However, Gabby Williams putting up 20 points. That's what you need to see. Like that was to me like the key to the next level for them is unlocking Olympic Gabby, if you will. And to me, that is getting up into that 15 plus points per game range. And so to get 20 in this one, what you're trying to see. That's what you're liking. But ultimately, they lost this game. And that is because Minnesota is so good. Kayla McBride, as you mentioned, like just picking up, just hitting the ground running 31 minutes, like in her first game back. And I'm like, is this punishment? Like, what is going on? Like, it's like, this is kind of crazy. But does what she does, right? And I tell you, I left this game so impressed in a new way with Fee. And because it was not the hottest shooting night from Fee. But in that first half alone, she almost put up a 5x5 stat line. What do you mean? Like what? Like that's not supposed to happen.
No, not just the first half. First quarter.
Like it's like what do you mean? What do you mean? Like to me, when I'm thinking about MVP, right? And obviously that's just a whole we're a ways away from that. But like we obviously understand that Fee is going to be one of those players in this conversation, and her ability to impact the game across so many different spots of the game, whether on either side of the ball, rebounding, forcing turnovers, even when the shot is not falling, and it got better during the second half. But watching her impact the game, and you like are so clearly seeing that, even when the shot's not falling, was just so incredibly impressive. And then Courtney Williams just had one of those games, like where Courtney Williams kind of just ascends, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster of a start for Courtney Williams to the beginning of this season. But this type of game is exactly why you want Courtney Williams on your roster, because she can just like pop off and it's not even like a big deal for her. So again, there's certainly like if you dive deeper into both these teams, like there's certainly negatives that you could take and room for improvement, absolutely. But ultimately, I think overarching in this dialogue and the takeaways from this game, I'm leaving feeling better because Minnesota looks really good, and Seattle was able to fight their way back against that really good Minnesota team. And I'm feeling more and more confident about the proposition of Seattle being like a true contender this season as we continue to see them against better opponents over the course of this early part of the WNBA season.
Yeah, I've really been so impressed with the way that Seattle has come together. They're just such a fun team. I like that. I talked a little bit online about how these are two teams that brought back a lot of their core, right? And so you have, all 5 starters returning for Minnesota. And then on the Seattle side, you have Gabby Williams back, who obviously wasn't here for the whole season. And we're seeing what that looks like when she is here for the full season, at least to start, is pretty big. And then you're adding in, you've got Ezzy back, you've got Nneka back, you've got Skylar back, and then you have vets like Alicia Clark, like Erica Wheeler, who has given them tremendous minutes.
Like, incredible.
Way more than I would have anticipated her contributing. So that is a massive, massive boost. And then you have, Lee Yuru was really good in the preseason and has struggled a little bit, but there's going to be games where I think she's really crucial for them. She's just someone that, especially against Minnesota, is not a good matchup for the way that Minnesota plays. And so we've seen that before from a lot of teams against Minnesota, where your traditional centers, that's just not a great matchup for them. But when you have so many players that can come in off the bench and contribute, especially when you already are dealing with just some injury issues with, having Katie Lou not able to play at all this year, but still hitting your cap space, that's massive for Seattle. And then on the other side of that, for Minnesota, I mean, Kayla coming back just changes everything for a team that has already been very, very good to start the year. Like, I mean, obviously, I'm always going to be looking at Bridget Carlton, right? And one of those things that she did so well last year was really improved her offensive production, because she's been very much like a defensive-minded player for Minnesota prior to last season, but she has a lot of ability to score. Well, to start the year, she's been playing really big minutes, and she has had to pick up a little bit of that defensive intensity again, because you have people that have been rotating in through the starting lineup that aren't quite as experienced in Minnesota's system. And so, they're working hard, but she's been picking up really tough assignments to start the year. And she was primarily on Paige Beckers, or once in a while on Arike in the 2 times they played Dallas. I mean, she was guarding a lot of Skylar last night. She's had some tough assignments. And so her scoring hasn't really been there. The shooting percentage hasn't really been there yet. But I think that a lot of that is able to be improved a lot easier once you have Kayla back in the mix, because she takes so much attention on the offensive end. It opens up shots for everyone else. And last year, the way that Kayla leveled up her defense was incredible, genuinely incredible. Because prior to last year, she was at times a defensive liability. And then last year, she just was nah,
just kind of decided to flip the switch a little bit. Yeah,
she was just like, you know what, this is this is something that I can improve upon. And it's been incredible. Like, it just shows how smart of a player she is, how hard of a worker she is, how well Minnesota kind of develops and caters to players' strengths, where they still were able to put her in good situations for the skills she developed, but it meant that there were more good situations to be put in. And so all of that combined with the way that Fee and Courtney have started off the season, and then you've got Atlanta healthy again, you've got Jess Shepard, who goes in and will just make like a pass here and there that you're like, how in the world did you even see that? Like, her vision has been tremendous. I'm so excited for the potential of what Minnesota has. And frankly, I'm really excited for Seattle as well, because I feel like in a lot of ways they're very similar in that they have a lot of weapons where you have some people who you feel like are going to consistently show up, but you have half a dozen other players that can give you 15, 20 on any given night.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be every night, but man, you really can switch things up. And so this was such a treat to get early in the season. And man, it lived up to the hype. The comeback from Seattle was huge. I personally am glad that Minnesota was able to hold strong, but this season already has been such a blast, and these kind of matchups are just like, oh yeah, this is happening in May still. And we still
it doesn't feel like May. It doesn't feel like May. That's been one thing I've really kind of taken interest in, is like there's some like between like the Liberty Fever game that we had, like I feel like this game was like there's been some like high level competitive hoops early on, and I think a big part of that is a lot of these teams have hit the ground running pretty well, like the top tier of teams. And I mean, a big part of that for Seattle, who I didn't think I mentioned at the beginning, is Skylar. Like, it's hard not to mention her. She's been so good to start this season. Like, she has been incredible. Like, pick a piece on like what you want a point guard to do. She's excelling at it right now. Like, she has been absolutely phenomenal. Ends up with 18 in this game.
Exactly. Like. That is up and down.
That is exactly what has impressed me the most.
Her facial expression and just like her behavior on the court, like she always has that like really intense air about her, but like it all just seems a little bit tamped down, where like she just, I think maybe it's the chemistry with the team, where like she has that trust with them and with the coaching staff, and whatever it is, like she's so much more level throughout the course of the game, throughout the course of the start of the season, and that is, I mean, it's really allowing her to show the breadth of what she's capable of.
She still does this, man. Like I don't know if like I feel like generally speaking, like over the course of the past couple of years, like dating back to like Phoenix and then leaving Phoenix, and then like I feel like people kind of forgot a little bit that Skylar does this, and she's reminding the entire league right now. Her and NECA, honestly, like if this is really like, this wasn't like the greatest game from NECA, like looking at this one specifically, but like generally speaking, like she's had some already historic stat lines over the course of this early season. So seeing them kind of remind the league a little bit, like, yeah, we still do this, has been super, super fun. And especially the fact they're doing it together, like that already just like, it's really cool. And you mix that in with some of the other players on this team that, I don't know, man, like I saw like a pathway for Seattle to be a contender, generally speaking, in the preseason and leading up to everything and kind of previewing the season. Now that we're seeing it in action and seeing how good some of these players have been, like that, you're kind of increasing the lanes, I feel like, to being a contender, just seeing how they've competed so well early on this season. So I've just, again, even in a loss, like you can what if it, like obviously a horrible start to the game. And it's like, well, if that doesn't happen, what does this game look like? You can what if it, blah, blah, blah. But regardless, I'm leaving this game feeling better about both teams. And that's a massive compliment to them both, because I thought the opposing team played really well in this game too.
Yeah, and especially, we talked about this during the college season, and it's the same here, where if you have really high aspirations, then there's a lot you can learn from losses. And this one, it's pretty simple, is you can't get off to that slow of a start.
Sure.
And so you can break it down from there, but you just know, okay, if we want to contend against the top of the league,
it's a full 48.
We have to be coming out strong.
Yeah.
And you can't have that 10 minutes to start where you are digging yourself a hole and then having to claw back out of it. And you very nearly did claw back out of it on the road, no less. So Definitely some things to take away from that from Seattle, but I completely agree with you that a lot of it is really positive. And I mean,
Yeah.
when I was talking to Coach Williams on Monday, her take was Skylar's playing like she has something to prove to someone, and I don't know who it is. It might be everyone, it might be the world, but
Yeah.
she's gonna remind him who she is, and she continues to do that, which
Yeah.
is, like I said, just so fun to see.
Yeah. If I'm a Storm fan, I hope they don't remember. Keep trying to prove it. That's all I know. Keep trying to prove
like,
it.
Yeah, stay under the radar.
Yeah,
actually.
absolutely. I don't know who disrespected you, but like, please, like, continue because this is great hoops. Like, please do.
Absolutely. So we touched on Lynx and Storm, and we discussed kind of just wanting to hit kind of the top of the league right now, which we'll have to include the Liberty in there because obviously Liberty are 4-0. They've gotten off to a really strong start to the season. I love what they've been doing. I've talked about this also on Monday about how much I love Tasha Cloud there and what she's bringing to the table. Her slam cover went hard, like just a great personality. You love it. However, last night played Golden State. I mean, you talk about burying a team from the get-go, and then down the stretch, you're just kind of playing the game. Like, okay, we got to finish this out. Let's see if we can get the bench in there. Like, Golden State didn't quit, but it was not really.
The takeaway is just Liberty good.
Liberty good. Not a whole lot to take away from that. So we were gonna kind of focus in on the other two teams that are rounding out the top four at the moment, and that's the Mercury and the Dream. And these are two teams that we had a whole bunch of questions about coming into the season, regarding scheme, regarding fit, regarding personnel. And those questions aren't necessarily answered, but they are maybe not as big of questions anymore because of what they've already shown they can do.
Yeah.
And that's with both of these teams having players missing for some or all of the games so far that are presumably returning. And so let's start with the Mercury, who right now are playing without Kalia Copper and Natasha Mack, both of whom would likely be starting.
Probably,
and we talked about, the point guard position, whatever. We talked about, man, this is a really different roster. Well, whoever their overseas recruiter is,
goodness gracious, where did you find all these people?
Slow clap for that because they got the connections, they brought in the pieces, they have a team that looks very comfortable together, and it's pretty impressive to see a group that just didn't have an obvious scheme to run, didn't have obvious roles coming into the season, and it doesn't frankly really matter much as far as they're concerned because they've been playing great basketball.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, when you think about depth across the league, I don't think any team is doing more with less than Phoenix. Like in terms of name value and what you on paper, what you see from this roster. But you're getting double figures from a Captain Westbeld, for example. What? What do you mean? and to me, what I keep going back to is to me, this is all about the engine that is Alyssa Thomas, where it's she almost is the system, where it's you have to give her so much respect for the way that she can kind of just lower her shoulder and get to the rim and play the angles and get to the rim, whatever, however she ends up taking it. And you have to respect what she can do so much that the gravity is just so much in that way, where you're able to get different players open in this way. So it's they don't have a point guard, but it feels like every question that I had going into this to this Phoenix team, whether it be defensively, point guard, Alyssa Thomas is just the Band-Aid on everything, and it just kind of keeps working. And they're also very comfortable with wherever Satu takes us is where we're going to land right now. Generally speaking, I feel like that's kind of where Phoenix is at. Gets 20 points, not the most efficient 20 points. I don't think Phoenix really cares. to be quite honest. Like I just don't think they care. And I don't even say that like in a bad way. Like you are just living with what Satu is going to give you, and she's been really, really good to start this season as well. So like you're comfortable because of like you're missing that Ka piece that would be taking all like the other shots in a lot of these scenarios. Not that the other players are getting scraps, if you will, but they're very comfortable with Satu taking all the shots. And while there's a lot of times where I would feel very uncomfortable with one player being the shot taker in that way, I see the vision here. I do. And it's working. So who am I to be like, well, stop doing that? No, it's working. Everyone is eating off the scraps, if you will, whether it be, I mean, Alyssa Thomas gets 15 assists in this game. Like, come on. Like, and that's not any crazy schematic thing or like, it feels like people diving in on AT and AT kicking it out and just having the right players in the right spots. And so on paper, this still doesn't really make sense to me that this team is winning these games. Like just from a name value, if you go by name recognition or anything like that, but name recognition doesn't win you basketball games. Your play on the court does. And that is what Phoenix is absolutely striving off of right now. So the stars are doing exactly what you need them to do, and your role players surrounding them are filling in the gaps. And it's been, again, we'll see as you go against some of these like the contenders of the league and everything like that, how it holds up. You split the first two games with Seattle, for example. So I'm interested to see when you play like the Minnesotas, the New Yorks, how that looks. But off rip, just playing who's in front of you, I've been incredibly impressed with how Phoenix has answered some of my initial questions going into the season.
And you make a really good point on the role players, because that's something that I also talked about on Monday, where I feel like there's a lot of teams that have maybe their stars figured out, maybe their focal points. They know those are known values. They know what they can bring to the table. They know how they work best, but they maybe don't know how to put the rest of the team in the best position. They don't really know what the best position is for the rest of them, and maybe the other players don't know exactly what their role is. And that's something I feel like Minnesota has done so well over the past couple of years, and that's something that the Liberty have done really well. You know, these perennial contenders, and you look at some of the teams where it's like, well, why aren't they doing better? And that usually kind of feels like more of the issue, where you maybe know what the center is, but it's the rest getting beyond that. And Phoenix, you're right, they really have started to figure stuff out, and that's with roles that are probably pretty different to what some of these players anticipate.
It's a brand new team, literally across the board.
Well, and even from what you were doing in preseason, with Natasha Mack going out and stuff like that. Like, I don't think that Kat Westfeld probably came in and said, I'm going to be a starter. Like, if she did, great for her. I love the confidence. But
playing 27 minutes?
Absolutely not. What the betting markets would have been leaning towards, you know? And side note, I love Mama Westfeld with the split hat down the center for Mercury and Sky.
What a flex.
Like, imagine your kid getting drafted as, like, you know, a graduate, and then also it's like, oh yeah, and then your daughter who graduated several years ago also is like getting her shot that same year, and like not just getting a shot, she's doing it.
Absolutely. Like that's what's so crazy to me, is that it's been consistent now for these role players that have not had this opportunity in the W. They're immediately coming over. Ka was supposed to be the connecting. I mean, you think about it, Ka and Mac, those are your connectors from last year. Both are out. Yeah. And it's still like, and I cannot say enough things, like whether it be Catherine, Monique, like you kind of go down the roster.
Kitloxa coming over as a rookie this year, was drafted back in 2020, hasn't played in the W yet, and you know, said in their post-game presser, she's just like, it's the right time. Like, I'm just so grateful. Like, especially with those overseas players, like there's a lot of calculations that go into if you ever come over, and then if you do, when and where. And so to see that, you know, you have this player who has so much overseas experience and decided this is the time, this is my time to come over and give the W a shot in the States. And man, I mean, last night especially, she was crucial. 18
Yeah,
points coming off
fantastic.
the bench in just over 24 minutes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
shot 6-7% from the floor, didn't miss a 2-point shot. Like, she had some massive shots down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you just look down the roster, and everyone is contributing in really big ways. And again, it's not going to be every night, but like the pieces they have are fitting together. They're really figuring it out, and
Mm-hmm.
that's extremely impressive, knowing that you do have these other players that are coming back in.
Yeah.
Likely sooner rather than later, from my understanding at least.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm definitely watching closely to see where Phoenix is ending up, like what direction they continue to move,
Mm-hmm.
because there's going to be some down nights, there's going to be tough ones, and a lot of it does rely on Alyssa Thomas, and so keeping her healthy, keeping her
For
in
sure.
good situations. But she has certainly proven over the years that she's someone who can thrive in a lot of different situations. So I'm really excited to see, like, they've got the 2 matchups with Minnesota within the next 4 days, because sure.
Shout out to the W.
But
yeah,
I guess not the next, within like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, we're gonna learn a lot about Phoenix over those 2 matchups, and like and where they kind of measure up to. And I mean, the last thing I'll touch on just super quickly before moving to Atlanta, like again, so Satu goes 7-21, right? But you look at the rest of this box score, everyone, like almost every other player that attempted a shot is at worst like 50%. 4 of 7, 5 of 10, 1 of 8 from Sammy Whitcomb. So again, not everyone, but 4 of 8, 2 of 7, 6 of 9, 3 of 6, 1 of 2. That's why I think you feel so comfortable with Satu going and like just trying to get as many shots up with like her being,
because her gravity is what opens those things up for everyone else. So knowing how many shots she's gonna take, like defenses just cannot relax off of her, and so her missing a shot might end up in like 2 makes from
absolutely.
Other people.
That's what's so great. Like she has to take that amount of shots for people to respect that she's going to take that amount of shots. Like that doesn't just happen by like happenstance that people are gravitating towards Satu, you know? So like again, it kind of defies my like general logic of like when I'm looking at a team and I'm like, okay, one player is really taking a lot of shots here. Like we're early on in the season. Like that's not generally like a recipe that I like when it comes to watching a team, but it works for Phoenix. And we'll see again how that matches up against the Minnesotas, the New Yorks of the league. But I mean, again, from an early season like takeaway perspective, I'm incredibly impressed with how much they are able to make out of this roster early on, and the reinforcements are on the way. And if they can fit those reinforcements in seamlessly, I'm intrigued. I'm very intrigued by what Phoenix can become.
Yeah. For sure. There's a lot there, and more to come, I think, for them. And so the last thing we were going to hit today, Atlanta. Yeah. I mean, look, you want to talk about teams we had questions about.
For sure.
There's maybe no one that we question more than the Dream coming into this season. And, you know, we always have the disclaimer of obviously we're not in the room, and these people are professionals. They've done it before, but it just seemed like a strange puzzle to put together, from knowing what Smesco's system had been to the personnel they added, and just, okay, how is that going to work? Well, right now it's working, and a lot of that comes down to the kind of consistency of their core, and that is obviously the headline is Alicia Gray, who we'll get to, but I feel like Ryan Howard has been very mature, very composed, has made pretty good decisions, has contributed in a lot of different ways. Very nearly had a triple-double last night with 3 steals and a block as well. Only had 1 turnover. I feel like that is a very underrated thing from her, is 7 assists and only 1 turnover is massive. And she's really focused on leveling up her defense this year. But then you have Naz Hillman, who has had to step up with BG out. Just I think they said it's mostly load management stuff. With, I mean, they've played a lot of games in a short time. So when she's in, everything's even wilder. And then Tina Pow working back in after taking a heck of a shot to the face. But the pieces that they returned, where I said, man, I just maybe they had some struggles last year, like Nia Coffey didn't have a great year last year,
Mm-hmm.
and she's coming in and she is giving them really, really solid minutes. She ain't taking a whole bunch of shots because she doesn't have to. Like, that's not what they're
Right.
asking for from her. And I feel like they are doing what I've said about some of these other teams we've discussed today of putting people in really good positions to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just crazy to see that happening on a lot of teams in a lot of different ways. Like, it just feels like a good movement right now for the W. It's why we're getting so many really fun games to watch, and the Dream have been a very welcome surprise as far as like being enjoyable basketball.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, certainly we haven't gotten like a long-term kind of feel when it comes to having Bree Jones and BG on the floor at the same time, to kind of see how that might function in the long term, and as you get into presumably, or hopefully if you're an Atlanta fan, playoff play and things of that nature. But goodness, like Alicia Gray, hello, like you want to talk about being obviously. I was gonna say being unlocked. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but that's how it feels. Because obviously, Alicia Gray's been doing these type of things before. Like, this is not new, but the way that she's going about doing it, and the way that she's scoring, the healthy shot diet, the open threes because of the gravity of the bigs, like, I mean, she's probably in basketball heaven right now. Like this, and to me, like, that's,
you heard her
yeah,
the other night.
she sounded like it.
I never seen so many open threes.
Exactly, and part of that is the gravity of the bigs. Part of that is, I feel like, just the system of a Smesco system. Like, look, he's been doing that for decades now. Like, and finding those open threes, right? So to me, Alicia Gray, like that level of, because that was to me, on top of the spacing, like just naturally with having Bree Jones and BG, and knowing how many threes they'd be taking, and how that would, if we were forcing that versus that being in addition to what they're already really good at. I feel like there's been a relatively good balance of that so far as well, like where it doesn't feel like the offense is like taking them out of where they're most successful. It's feeling more additive, and that's kind of what we didn't know preseason, as you mentioned, like not being in the rooms, where it's like the talk of this is like, okay, we're hearing a lot about 3-pointers from these bigs, and that is not what you bring them in to do. But it seems like it's been more of addition to, which has been nice. And to me, I agree. Like Ryan Howard as well, because like it was the spacing from the bigs and the level up from the wings. We're getting the level up, right? Like that is like Alicia Gray. Absolutely, I would like to see Ryan Howard's absolutely stuffed the box score. So in this last game, so not necessarily speaking about this last game specifically, the Indiana game she was really great in. It's about finding like the overall consistency, I think, for Ryan, where it's, you want to be in double figures every night. You want to do it as efficiently as you possibly can, things of that nature. But overall, I still like the vision for what this team is much clearer, much earlier than I could have possibly anticipated. And a lot of that to me just simply has to do with the production of Alicia Gray. And certainly there's other parts that lead to that production, as I mentioned, but you have to convert those shots. You have to be able to do that. And she is doing that at such an incredibly high level right now. So I've been 7 of 8 leads you to 25 points. Like, come on, like that doesn't get much better than that. You get to the free throw line 9 times. It's not just threes by any means. She only took 2 threes. Like it's not just threes. And that was where part of my worry was, where it's like, you also don't want to just stick the bigs in the middle and have the wings jacking up threes, and that's your offense, right? And so I as I mentioned, like the vision is pretty clear right now in a way that I didn't anticipate being this early, just because it was such a shift. But there was also, like, you could kind of see the lane where it's like, okay, I can see how Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray could really like being in a Carl Smesco system, So it's not that I'm necessarily surprised by it as much as I am way more confident in it earlier than I could have ever anticipated in the preseason, just because the talk and what was being said out loud isn't really matching up, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but it's not really matching up with the product that we're seeing on the court right now. Like the emphasis on the big shooting threes and spacing the floor isn't as much of an emphasis on the court. And I think that's probably because whether it be media asking those questions or whatever, like you can only answer what you're asked. So I'm not like, that's not a blame or a negative. It's a relief, to be honest, because I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to see that. And I think Atlanta fans are going to be much happier with what they're seeing and the shot diet that they're seeing here than what that would have been. So I mean, Alicia Gray is certainly like the main takeaway and how good she's been, but overall, I'm very, very happy with how things are kind of starting to slot in here. As you mentioned, some of the role players as well. Like everything feels pretty good. And again, we'll have to see what the long-term vision once we get BG and Bree Jones on the court. But even in those games that we did see him, it looked pretty dang good. So I'm cautiously optimistic about how Atlanta is going to look deeper into this season.
Yeah, and I think that something that's really interesting is there's nothing that's like inherently unsustainable about how they've been performing so far. Where like you're talking about a team that has not shot great from three recently, and frankly, this year they are 10th in the league in 3-point percentage, but they're shooting a lot better from two than they are from three, and the amount of threes they're taking is then opening things up on the inside. And so they're, like you talk about their shot diet, like their decision making has still been very, very good. Like they're first in restricted area field goals made in the league. And so sure, you're taking these outside shots, but you're also getting a lot of offensive rebounds. You're also getting a lot of drives, a lot of feeds inside to your bigs. And so again, we talked about how Satu taking her shots opens things up for other people. The Dream as a whole taking their perimeter shots opens things up on the inside. And like it's crazy when you look at the breakdown game by game right now, their 3-point percentage doesn't really correlate with wins and losses. It's the 2-point percentage, and their 2 losses, they've shot 47% from 2 and then 37% from 2. And then in their free throws against Washington, they only shot 67% from the free throw line. They missed 9 free throws. If you make even half of those, you win the game.
Right.
And then against Indiana, they shot 78%. So that was pretty good free throw shooting, but that was where they only shot 37% from 2. And so that was where they had a little bit of a drop off from 2. And in both of those games, they shot right about on their average from 3. And so it's like, okay, you know about how many threes you're going to take. You take the ones that look good. You're going to knock down around a third of them. And beyond that, you're just getting yourself those second, third, fourth chance opportunities. You're going to get drives to the rim. You're going to get free throw attempts. And so that's what is very interesting is, as we talked about with Mercury, with Khan Mack being out, with the Dream, it's BG has missed some time, and then Jordan Canada really looked like it was going to be a season-ending injury for her. And they're saying, she's working back in, and there's been people who have reported seeing her doing workouts before games and stuff. So that is massive for them to potentially get a little bit more of that perimeter depth back as well. So that'll be, I think, really fun to see as, again, these teams that are already really figuring stuff out get close to full strength. And we're going to get some really, really competitive games out of it, because we already have, and there's certainly going to be more to come.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. And had you told me going into this season that we'd be looking at the 2-point percentage for Atlanta to determine wins and losses, I would not have believed you. I'll put it like that. But goodness, I don't know if there's many better duos to try and up your 2-point percentage than having Bree Jones and BG on your same team. So if that is going to be their recipe to success more so, and the threes are kind of a means to an end almost, if you will, like, look, I can get behind that. That's a system and a mentality that I can get behind. So I'm very intrigued by making sure that Atlanta develops and continues to build good habits in those threes and what that looks like. And just in general, like how the winning kind of keeps on, and where they can find consistency at across different parts of their game. But overall, Phoenix and Atlanta were the 2 teams I probably had the most questions about, like just not knowing what it was going to look like. And both these teams have immediately found some level of success in answering those questions. So look, I'll take the credit if you'll look. Thank you for answering my questions.
They needed raised, yeah.
Thank you for answering my questions, Atlanta and Phoenix, and we will see how you all continue on.
All right, well, everyone, as we've learned, then Tyler DeLuca, the key to success in
I
Atlanta.
guess.
We'll stick with that, I suppose.
Man, I don't know if Atlanta would agree with me, but
unbeknownst to them, putting the necessary vibes out into the universe.
Yes.
Well, all right. We'll leave it there. We don't need to probe that any more than we already have. That's plenty of that. But folks, you can find Tyler online at Tyler DeLuca, TYLERDELUCA. Is that everywhere pretty much?
Yeah. You can find me there everywhere.
All right, and then me, also the same, basically anywhere you're going to be looking for me, Jamie Steyer Johnson at JSteyz, JSTEYZ. Her Hoop Stats podcast will be back tomorrow with Chelsea Layton, Richard Cohen. I'll be back on Friday. Tyler will be coming at you sometime next week, so make sure that you're tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, review, do all that fun stuff. Definitely appreciate the engagement, the feedback. Otherwise, Her Hoop Stats podcast will be back for you tomorrow.